All right. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed part two. We're going to move into the third part of our podcast now, where Christiane has got some specific questions for Ronelle, and we'll talk with her about her expertise in this interesting industry.
Thank you, Eric. So, Ronelle, thank you again for being our guest for today. It's a pleasure to have you here. I would like to ask you to start by sharing a little bit more about Helion Research's business, what methodologies you work with, and what industries do you have experience with working in South Africa and beyond?
Okay, perfect. So, Chris, we work a lot with mystery shopping. That's one of my my favorite methodologies. We obviously we do other face-to-face and some other ad hoc research as well, but mystery shopping is really the methodology that we deploy here, and we work a lot in the retail space, including fashion. Accessories and hospitality, entertainment, motor industry, you name it, we work in those industries. If there's a customer attached to it, we do some work in those industries.
Fantastic. We worked together at the Mystery Shopping Professionals Association for a long time, and I know that mystery shopping is one of your favorite methodologies, of course. Can you share with us why mystery shopping is so special for you in terms of measuring customer experience?
Chris, what I've really seen is it's been very, very interesting. So why I really like mystery shopping is because it's a practical management tool. There's really, I think, two specific advantages to mystery shopping. If we identify that there's a specific problem in an area, it's very easy to deploy a mystery shopper to go and quickly check what exactly is going on. So it's light, it's easy, and it's quick to deploy. The second one is it gives us detail. It gives us granular detail that you are not going to find on any other survey. So we can quickly, step by step, I can go down to as much detail as humanly possible, as much as what I want to with a mystery shop that you cannot really get with any other research. It works well with customer satisfaction. It works well with voice of customer as an add-on to delve deep, and we can attach action plans to it. And I think that's why I love it the most, because I'm all about improvement. It's not about the score. What do we do with the score? It's about improving it to turn that into customer experience and sales. That's really where the return on investment lie.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that customer experience is one of your passions. So today we're talking a lot about the fashion accessory stores business. And I wonder what be your advice for the fashion accessory store business when designing their customer experience strategy, where they should start?
Chris, the starting point would be understanding your customers. It sounds like it sounds almost too simple, but that's the starting point, really understanding your customers. And we have to ask, how often do we really understand our customers? If I just take the South African environment, we don't just have the generations. We've got so many things to consider. Being a marketer today in this country is almost like being a magician. So in order to be truly successful and to deliver experiences that elevate and motivate me to continue to support you, you have to understand my needs. You have to understand what it is that I'm wanting from you, and then you need to be able to deliver on those in store. So, and it's about the passion for the brand, and let our people be able to explore or show that within the environment. And I oftentimes think we saw that in some of the results that came through for the results as well, is that people and the connection, that's oftentimes a very difficult thing to do. But if we can put ourselves in the customer's shoe, I did mention previously that only 7% of income, between 5 and 7% of our disposable income is spent on anything outside of the absolute basics that we need in South Africa. So that's not a lot. And if I am going to enter your store as a customer, I expect that you understand my needs and that you are able to connect and provide me with the information or the products that I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's true. And with the advances of artificial intelligence, the hyper-personalization of the offer to your customers should be a priority for most business, and most businesses are still behind. And we saw that, for example, in terms of the critical review response, that there is a huge amount of data available already, and businesses are not acting upon that information. So yeah, it's still a
because
long way.
it's personal. It's personal. Of course, our environment need to support, so the operational aspects need to be there, and we also need to know what to do when things go wrong. Because that's often where the opportunity lie to actually turn people into loyal supporters, because things can go wrong. But what do we do when things go wrong? By not
Absolutely.
answering, that's not the correct way to actually deal with it. Yes.
Absolutely. So this is a question that I always ask our guests, no matter which country they are. And what do you think business leaders can learn from the business culture in South Africa? For example, what makes the customer experience unique?
What makes it unique in South Africa is that we are such a unique nation. We are not called the Rainbow Nation for no reason. We, in South Africa alone, you're looking at 11 official languages. As many languages as what we've got, so many cultures do we have. Outside of your different generations, you've also got, South Africa has got its own history, which actually makes it a little bit more complicated. In order to be a true marketer in this country, you really have to be on top of your game, and you have to have your eyes and your ears close to the ground, and you have to have your heart connected to the people. Else it makes it very, very difficult. And if you ask me what's a typical environment for a South African, that's actually very, very difficult to answer. But I can say they fall into a few categories. Okay, South Africans are very loyal. They sometimes are almost obsessed with the brands that they do support. So they are very, 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 very loyal people. And they will actually, South Africans, despite being under extreme pressure when looking after finances, they will actually spend a little bit more on local brands or products, specifically if it's sustainable. So there's a huge opportunity there. So loyalty is very definitely like a big thing. Then another thing that's important for the average South African is trust. I need to be able to trust the brand. And and again, I go back to some of the findings of the study, which was shocking for me, that the critical review is so low. Because, that is, in South Africa, we are one of the countries that's actually the most active in actually checking reviews online before we do purchases. Mm-hmm. I think we're actually the highest country in the world, if you look globally. So, it's a huge opportunity. And I want to say we work with a lot of small boutique agencies, especially in the accessory industry. That is a huge, huge opportunity. Again, I say you can't just ignore it. So trust, and then increased expectations. I know a couple of years back, people used to say, oh, consumers in South Africa has got lower expectations than the rest of the world. No, I challenge that 120%. Actually, we've got increased expectations, especially when it comes to an industry such as this. It's seen as a luxury. It is not something that I have to have. So if I'm going to spend my money there, I want to be treated like a king or a queen. I want to be treated like I matter. And if I don't, I will quickly switch brands. And consider now that we are a loyal nation and that trust is very, very important. I'm not going to give you many opportunities. So that experience in store is actually really, really critical. And then the last factor, but it's equally important, is value for money. I don't want to, if I'm going to go to a fashion accessory store and I believe I'm buying something that is unique to the store, I want to feel that it's unique. I don't want to see it somewhere later on some website that's cheaper than what I paid for it. And I also want to know that it's, you said it, Chris, sometimes I'm going to buy something and I don't mind paying for it if it's going to last me a lifetime. It then needs to last me a lifetime. So it's where the trust and the value and the loyalty all come together to work together, to create loyalty with the brand. Okay.
That's a very complex customer. From our experience, until which extent business really know this complexity of the South African market?
Yeah, so in the South African space, we can see, and I mean, if you're going to go look at complaints online, you'll often find the complaints are around that personal connection, staff. It's not the facilities, it's the interaction. So getting brands to get the passion into the people for the connection with their customers, that's really where the opportunity 100% lies right now in South Africa.
Yeah, I imagine so. So we are talking before about your experience with mystery shopping. That is one of your favorite methodologies because it's more reliable, it's easy to deploy, and how is so much more accurate in terms of objective evaluation. Can you share with us, from your perspective, what are some of the most important aspects companies need to consider when starting a mystery shopping program?
Clarity. You need to be clear on what it is that you want to measure. Because once you can measure it, you can manage it. It's not mine to coin. Someone coined it. I can't remember who it was, but if you can measure it, you can manage it. And what I find is oftentimes when we roll out a program where we are clear about what it is that we want to measure right up front, it is the most successful. And it's not just clear about what you want to measure, but also what are you going to do with the information once it comes back. Because it's not just about a score. We are not looking here at an NPS or a voice of a customer where we are chasing a score. The score really doesn't matter that much. It's about the output. What is coming out of the information and what are we going to do with it? How are we constantly going to improve? Because customers' experience or customers' expectations are constantly evolving. And if we want to keep our customers, we need to keep in touch with where our customers are expecting us to perform, because we've got choices, we've got options. We've got online. The retail stores, walk-in stores are now competing with online. We are not just competing with South African and local brands, or the brands in our malls, but we are also competing with online stores that's based outside of the country. So it's accessible, it's very accessible for us to get to accessories. So it's important to make sure that connection is done very, very well.
It's interesting that you say that, because this is something that we always advocate as well, that there are several methodologies that can address different challenges in the business perspective. And depending on your objective, you should select the best methodology that fit your purpose. And of course, mystery shopping is a great tool, but does not fit all the purposes. So do you use any metrics to measure return on investment on your mystery shopping programs and other research methodologies?
So that's a very, very interesting question. And it's very much dependent on the client. So many of our clients actually measure mystery shopping together with, if you look at the fuel industry, with the fuel output, the liters that they pump. In the retail space, sales, it's linked to that. Of course, in our questionnaires, we also include questions such as, did they try and convince you to sell the product on the day? Was there any upselling that happened? Okay. But now I've got a very, very interesting case study that I want to share with you. We had a client that was doing mystery shopping, and they did it for a year. It's not in this industry. It was in the restaurant industry. They stopped for a while to do mystery shopping. They recently contacted me and said, you know what, we really need to do mystery shopping again. And I asked them, so why did you stop? Said no, they didn't have anybody to actually action the feedback internally. But what they did see was there was a double-digit drop in sales since stopping mystery shopping. So that was a hindsight return on investment that played out in our favor. But, I'm sure if you go, there will be many of those kinds of case studies that we can discuss across many industries. So yeah, I thought that was very, very interesting. Double-digit drop in sales, that's quite significant, I would say.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, Ronelle, because yes, mystery shopping, it's a CX measurement methodology, but one thing that's often overlooked is it's also a touch point with the staff that can help to hold them accountable. And so if people know there's an active mystery shopping program, even if it's only once a month, it really makes them, especially if there's bonuses tied to it. For example, if you do a great job in a mystery shop and you get an extra bonus or something like that, it really increases awareness and helps just day to day the staff just to really know that, yeah, we're being watched and this matters. And we should put an extra emphasis on trying to make sure the customers are satisfied.
It's a feedback. It's like there are several studies that shows that just by having a scale in your bathroom and monitoring your weight like once a month or every 2 months, it's proven that those people weight less than people that don't own a scale and don't check their weight regularly. And I know it's kind of an odd comparison, but if you receive constant and regular feedback, it gives you a sign that people are considering how your performance is going. People care about your job performance, and they are making you this tool available for you for improvement.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. So we do have a client that measures quite a few. I mean, they've got quite a few metrics that they measure. Some of it is scored, and some of it's not scored. And what we find, the elements that are scored actually performed better than the ones that are not scored. Although both are measured, the ones that are scored and incentivized, Eric, they perform better than the ones that are just measured and reported on. So that's another interesting finding. Yeah.
I think that you're touching on another point there, which is the precision that mystery shopping gives you. And you mentioned this a minute ago, but with respect to acknowledgement of staff effort and so forth, a customer review, a lot of times the customer doesn't remember who their server was. They don't remember who took their order or anything like that. They don't know who helped them in the store. They just know it was a nice person, right? But with mystery shopping, that's a trained mystery shopper who's going in there and they're making note of the person's name. If they have a name tag on, are they dressed in the appropriate uniform and so forth? And so it really lets you designate and action things with specific employees. So you can say, you mentioned the upsell, good job, do that again. Or you really helped this customer figure something out. That was perfect. Or you did this. We were doing this last month, but this month the process is a little different. We noticed on the mystery shop that you didn't do it this way. And so it's a great coaching opportunity and also a very valuable reinforcement tool that you really can't get with anything else.
100%. And what we find, there's oftentimes a very direct correlation between voice of customer scores and your actual performance on your mystery shopping questionnaire. And I think that's where the value really lies for customers. So you understand what your voice of customer is saying, and then you can drill down and apply an action plan based on your mystery shopping results. And it's the two together, I believe, that's the magic formula that everyone's looking for.
That is what we call synergistic CX. When you take those subjective measurements like voice of the customer and online reviews, and you use those to action and operational measurements such as mystery shopping or internal business audits. Those are that's really that's the peanut butter and jelly, or cake and ice cream combination there.
And really, I mean, we've got small clients that do it on small scale, and you can see the impact that it's got on their businesses. And we've got large corporate globals that do this, and you can see the impact that it's got for them. So people that do only the one or the other, you can also see where the gap is.
Ronelle, allow me to take you one step further on the Eric mentioned earlier objective versus subjective measurements. So subjective is voice of the customer, online reviews and ratings, versus objective, which is mostly mystery shopping. And you did talk about the correlation between voice of customer surveys as a subjective tool and mystery shopping as an objective tool. But I just want to get your opinion on action management and more so penalties and incentives. So what is your opinion on penalties and incentives in general, and more specifically, do you think it is, what is your opinion on penalties and objectives based on objective measurements, and same thing based on subjective measurements? Meaning, do you think it is fair to apply such tools to incentivize or penalize stuff based on subjective measurements alone? So that is, I understand this is a long question, and if I need to.
No, I'm obviously going to give my subjective opinion around it. We work with quite a number of programs that are incentivized. I don't particularly like it, Emil, because then that is when we start finding that people are chasing a score rather than focusing on the quality of the interaction. And what matters to a customer is the experience, the seamless experience, the seamless experience and the consistency of that experience in store. So it doesn't matter if I scored 90%, but I'm still not feeling good about the experience. And oftentimes, and I see that especially in mature programs where there's been an incentive that's been linked to the program for a very, very long time, is that's now all about the score. So we're ticking all the boxes, we're doing all the operational functions or elements like we should, but that connect between operations and experience, there's still a gap that exists there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm not absolutely crazy about it, but I do understand in a sales environment that it is useful for some clients, but I'm not an advocate.
And there is no right answer to this question. We have done these. We have had these discussions with many people on our conferences many times. So there's really no consistency either in the sentiment about what is what and what should be done. But again, I'm still trying to find some sort of guidelines, if you will. Because obviously we do want to measure so that we can apply some action strategies to improve results. And if there are no incentives or penalties, and we do apply the action management part in conjunction or without, out of conjunction with those, I guess if you can share your opinion in this triad of how should I call it? Well, if you take the measurement, incentives, penalties, and action management, is a good action management program able to work? And my definition of able to work is to produce improvement without incentives and penalties. I guess that is how I can articulate the question. Can action management program improve the performance without the corresponding incentives and penalties?
And I don't think there's a quick answer to that one either. It really pretty much depends on the brand. It depends on the experience. It depends on the actual product. There are so many nuances that actually influence that. What I can tell you, everywhere where we have worked, where there's been a penalty attached, what happens, the measure becomes then the stick. Mm-hmm. And that is not motivating. So that's not necessarily going to motivate employees or staff to create better experiences in store. So that's why a penalty for me is not an action plan. Then I would rather go with a reward and recognition program because mm-hmm. at least there's a positive connotation to that, and we are rewarding positive behavior in store.
Yeah, and let's not forget that the rewarding does not need to be a bonus. It can be recognition and evaluation program, like a 360 evaluation of performance from the teams, which means that, for example, for the next career promotion or career planning, they might be considered as points for evaluation. It does not necessarily mean bonus or money or anything monetary.
I'd like
Yes.
to tie back to something that you said earlier, Ronelle, related to this, which is the concept of clarity in the program. Because I've seen, so I'm just out in various businesses as a consumer, sometimes you hear about a company that has, for example, a mystery shopping program that's being run. And sometimes when I hear that, I'll say, "Oh, that's really interesting. Do you mind if do you have a copy of your survey? Can I see that?" And they'll share them with me, and I just find it interesting. And the ones that seem to offer great customer experience have a mystery shopping form that seems very specifically crafted for what they're after. And then I've seen others where they're taking advantage of the fact that they've got a mystery shopper, an actual trained, anonymous auditor, so to speak, who's going into the establishment, and they're checking all sorts of other things that aren't really related to customer experience or are just additional just fluff that aren't essential to improving the CX. And when they do that, when I've talked with those staff members at those stores, they'll say things exactly like what you just said. They'll say, we don't target the CX, we target the score, because they put weights on this other question that has nothing to do with the CX at all. And or it's a very minor part, but they want to focus on it really heavily for some reason. And you can tell just by reading the questionnaire, it's not a focused survey that's targeting to try to improve the CX. It's trying to accomplish a lot of other business functions just because they've got effectively an auditor in there. And so like you said, sometimes incentives are there, sometimes incentives are a benefit, sometimes they're not. It really depends. There's a lot of complexity. But I think that point of clarity is one theme that I've seen personally as a thing that's absolutely essential to have an impact that's positive.
Eric, it's 100% correct, because if we don't have clarity, we've got confusion. And it's that clarity the clarity should be linked to customer expectation. The two don't stand separate from one another. And it's when you're confusing it with all kinds of other clutter that you end up with a measure that gives you a great score, so you can tap yourself on the back, but your customer is not feeling.
Exactly.
And that's where the return on investment is to create an enjoyable experience that's going to want me coming back for more, and it's going to want to buy the product on the day.
I think that's something that long-running mystery shopping programs have to constantly reevaluate and fight against too. Is over time there's creep, if you will, where they add a question, add another question, and before you know it, you've got something that used to be a 10-minute mystery shop or a 20-minute mystery shop, and now it's an hour and a half long thing that's four and a half pages. And ultimately, you're touching on all these things that the management might think matters, but in reality, the customers are not focusing on from a customer standpoint. Or perhaps the weights are different. Management might think this is really important, and the customers think it's a much smaller piece of the pie in the overall customer satisfaction. And so there really needs to be that synergistic aspect where you're looking at the reviews and the voice of the customer surveys to see what are customers talking about, what are they caring about, and refine your programs based on that, and not necessarily just a guess as to what you think customers are thinking.
Yeah, and Ronelle, correct me if I'm wrong, but we also face another challenge in our industry, which is the clients that are totally hooked to historical data. So they have the same program year after year, and they refuse to change the questionnaire because they want to compare with the previous years. Do you have this issue as well?
Oh, 100%. And that's something, that's what we call mature programs, because they are mature. And actually I recently had an interaction exactly like that, because the scores are exceptionally high. But when you look at we actually did a customer sentiment analysis. And when you look at the sentiment analysis versus what the scores are saying, they're completely not aligned. And that, Eric, was the one where there were questions in that are not scored that are important, but the things that are not important to the client, those were the scored questions. And that's when we get this anomaly. So what is going on? My customers are not happy, but I'm scoring high in the mystery shopping questionnaire. There must be something wrong with the mystery shopping questionnaire. Yes, you're not measuring the correct elements. It's got to be aligned with your customer expectations.
Yeah. So going back here to my other questions for you, I know that Helion Research has operations in many different countries, and this is something that I want to address, the international projects. From the business perspective, from the client perspective, what is the advantage of having one provider managing the customer experience project in several countries, even with the cultural differences considered?
Yeah. So I think working with one provider really makes it easy. And I mean, we try and walk the talk. I mean, we're talking about customer experience. At the end of the day, business is all about customer experience. So even for our customers, it makes it a seamless experience when you have one team that you interact with. What really works well for Helion is that we've got a very, very close relationship between the branches. So we are able to work collectively on a global program. Yet we've got our Africa office based here, but we also have operational people in each of the countries. So we are quickly able to do the small little local nuances that's needed, because even if we work on global programs, there are small local nuances that need to be changed and shifted. And because we're on the ground, we can do that easily, we can do that seamlessly, while still making sure that international standards or the global standards are still adhered with, globally. So I think that's really why it works working with one company. You know that the standards are set at a global level, but it's adjusted locally.
Yeah, and that is why I have the next question for you, because I know you are a global company with a local know-how.
Yes.
My question for you is, from your experience, what are the small things that make a difference in the customer day when shopping at retail stores nowadays? I mean, what makes shoppers still go to physical stores instead of just shopping online?
And that again is a very, very interesting question. And if we look specifically for the accessory industry, Chris, it's all about the personal connection. It's about that connect with the person in store to make sure that I am connecting with someone that I believe can give me knowledge, can help me with the decision, and the tactile feeling. I mean, I was speaking to someone and asking them, why don't you want to shop for accessories online? Simple thing, like the color, the touch. It's a tactile experience.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also very, very, it's almost like a two-edged sword at the moment, because I can get everything that I want online. My expectations are rather high when I do go in store. I am not going to want to waste my time with anybody that's going to treat me like they are doing me a favor to actually help me in store. So it's a very interesting dynamic, very, very high expectations. The small things do matter. The greet, the be friendly, the giving me your time, looking me in the eye, making sure that you are listening. Listening is probably the most, listening and being able to adapt and turn that into meeting a customer's need is very, very important in the discussion. So that's why often when we do coaching and training, we focus on teaching people how to listen and to respond accordingly.
Yeah. And this is particularly important because, as we are talking before, offline. It's the first time we have 6 generations in the marketplace, from the silent generation that was born between 1928 to 1945, and then boomers, and then X, millennials, Gen Z, and even, as we are talking before, the Gen Alpha that was born between 2013. So how are brands adapting to this reality, and how can they address so different expectations in terms of behavior, in terms of shopping experience, with the mix of online and offline, even on the stores when they are looking at influencers? Even girls that are 10 years old are now shopping for fashion accessories. So how retailers are teaching their employees to interact with 6 generations at the same time on the stores?
And I'm going to go back to what I said previously. It is complicated. It's such a massive opportunity. You take the different generations and you put it in a country with all the nuances that we are dealing with. You can understand, to be a successful retailer in our industry, you have to be an expert. You have to be passionate. You have to really want to deal with people. You need to be passionate about your brand. You need to be passionate about people, and you need to be able to be an excellent communicator in order to be able to do that, because you need to understand your customers' needs. If you do not understand your customers' needs, it's not actually going to be possible. And then we go back to a school, because everybody that looks like a Gen Zer is not necessarily going to behave like one. So we need to understand and be able to speak the language of each of the generations. And there's one golden thread, Chris, that runs through it, no matter what generation you're born in. The personal touch and interaction when dealing with a person on the other side.
Yeah.
That personal connection. It doesn't matter what generation you are from. If I look when my daughter was a bit younger, going to a retail store, you will not believe how oftentimes the kids, and Chris, you will know this, are being treated with disrespect. They are not being given the time of day, when you need to remember those are the customers of the future, and how you treat them today, you are inviting them in to come back tomorrow. We've got to use technology in that retail environment, but don't overcomplicate it, because then we're going to miss our boomers. It's not that boomers cannot use technology, but don't overcomplicate it. So it's that fine balance between personal interaction, making sure your operational processes are spot on, and then using technology to enhance the actual experience.
And also, that's why it's so important in the sales process to have open-ended questions to identify the needs and to know your customer. Because as you said, not every Gen Z is the same, not every millennial is the same. So to interact with your customer and to understand their needs and to have open-ended questions, it's crucial to really understand the profile of the customer, regardless of the age and how they're dressed.
I truly believe that we are moving into an age where it is critical that we understand customers' needs. We cannot do lip service around that anymore. We have got so much information. It's about turning that into information into practical action plans that turns into energizing relationships that make me want to come back for more, that makes me want to buy today, that makes me want to tell everybody else about the great experience I've experienced in store at that moment and time.
Fantastic. So Ronelle, thank you so much. But to finish, I have my key question that I always make for guests, special at this time of the year. And that would be, what would be your top 3 recommendations for brands to focus in terms of customer experience for 2025?
Well, top of that list, Chris, it has to be, make sure you understand who your customers are. Clarity on who your customers are, what they expect from you, you need clarity on what is it that you want to create, or how do you want your customers to feel when they interact with you or do business with you. Then have a very clear plan or a blueprint that you are able to deploy in store, that you're able to maintain. Because one of the biggest thing is consistency. I also want to know every single time that I come, I know what to expect, and it gets better, and you are able to adjust your behavior around my changing, ever-changing needs. Customers are very, what can we call them? They are very demanding. Expectations are have become much more, what's the word now? Increased expectations from customers, which means that we also need our behavior to adjust accordingly to ensure that we keep them as customers. Okay, so yeah, clarity on customer expectations, aligning our actions accordingly, and of course, I'm going to say to put in a measurement plan so that you can measure, manage, and constantly improve.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ronelle, for being part of our episode of the podcast. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with your community. It was great to have you here at the CX channel.
Thank you very much, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Great. Well, that wraps up our podcast for today. If you like what you saw, then please visit our website at www.cx-channel.com to download the magazine with all of the detailed results you saw here and a whole lot more. Follow us on YouTube. Please hit that subscribe button. We're on YouTube and also LinkedIn or whatever social media you like to watch. And stay up to date with all of our other activities. Also, feel free to leave your comments and questions and tell us what micro industry we should tackle next. We look at those and decide what we'll be looking at for one of our future podcast episodes. But thank you again for watching the CX channel, where CX professionals converge, and we'll see you next time.